Welcome to Real Chat with Kat, the podcast that's all about real conversations for real transformation. I'm your host, Kat Pulcinelli, professional speaker, MC, and best-selling international author. Here, we tackle the tough stuff, the mud that we all have found ourselves in. We talk about the pivots, the challenges, and the victories that shape our lives and our businesses. From overcoming trauma and finding your voice to navigating life's unexpected twists, we get raw, honest, and open. You'll hear from inspiring guests who share their stories of resilience, healing, and growth. Whether it's breaking through emotional abuse, embracing self-worth, or thriving in entrepreneurship, you'll find connection, empowerment, and the tools to keep you moving forward. So grab your favorite drink, settle in, and get ready for stories that hit home and conversations that make a difference. Let's get real together. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of Real Chat with Kat. I am super excited to have you here, and oh my gosh, have we already started 2026 out with like a freaking bang? I feel like everything that has been coming through has been like all these pieces and components that we are all focusing on, and now we've made it through the first month. So, how are we doing? How's everyone going? How's those New Year's resolutions? Did you decide to do something different? Maybe you started your resolution in December and decided to make it a habit and get away from that. I know we talked about that in an earlier episode, which is great because now we're going to bring you another amazing individual to help you with how to focus on that mindset, right? Especially as we get through the first bit of January, that's when everybody typically starts to fall off of these new habits and stuff. So, Maria, this is like the perfect time to have this conversation. So I'm so excited to have you today. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you so much for having me. I am super excited to be here because obviously I'm passionate about that topic. So excited to dive in.
Yeah, this is going to be so much fun. Okay, so as we get started in, do us all a favor and tell everybody, who you are and what it is that you do.
My name is Maria Angelova. I am the creator of the Angelova Method and I do mind and body coaching. So I make sure that your body and your mind are on the same page so that you age and succeed with vitality and energy and feeling great.
Oof, boom, love it. That is amazing. So beautifully said. And I was actually, funny enough, I was on your website earlier because I was looking at some of the things, and you talk a lot about um, what we have normalized,
Yeah.
right? We taught you that's what I saw that at the very beginning of this is, rewriting your story where power meets presence and success meets the soul. Because you said this is not normal, but that's what has been normalized. So explain to me let's go ahead and dive into that. What do you feel like has been normalized, but isn't really normal for us?
So many things that are not serving us. And that's the big question I ask clients. Like when you defend, right, and you feel like you need to justify of why you're acting certain way, the big question to ask yourself is it serving you? We have learned to accept that, okay, once you turn 45, it's okay to have back pain. It's okay to feel tight and achy and tense. It's okay to not be able to sleep as you get into perimenopause. It's okay to be burned out and rush from place to place and not have downtime as you're succeeding. Like, no, 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 no. You are meant to feel great in body, mind, and spirit as you age, as you climb the ladder of success, as you exist every day. Like you're not meant to exist. You are meant to thrive and embrace life again with energy, with soulfulness, with fun. Kat, I had somebody, we were having a conversation, and I said, oh, unless it's fun, I don't want any part of it. And he looked at me and he goes, oh, he's like, you're very disconnected. I said, no, no, no. I'm actually very connected. And I was like, that's a mindset we have to shift, that we accept that as we get older, and we get more and more responsibilities, we're just supposed to settle with life. No, we are
Mm.
not. We are meant to thrive in body, in mind, and spirit. When you do, I call it intentional movement, when you meet your body where it is, when you gift it alignment and core strengthening and mobility, it feels great and it can continue to feel great and function well. The needs as we age of our body change than when we're 20. The same thing with mindset. We get so bogged down into responsibilities and what we have to do and what we must do, and we get so disconnected from who we are and that inner flame and that inner energy and presence and uniqueness. And I'm like, no, that's the return to you. And as we age and as we climb the ladder and as we progress to life, it only gets better. And I think we have to stop accepting and settling for less.
Oh, I am 1000% with this, like all the freaking way. And I know I've talked about this before, but I feel like what you're really talking about is these invisible societal norms that we have just
Accept it.
become okay with. Yeah, we've accepted. And I love this because, when I talk about things that we go through and traumas that we experience and stuff like that, like there's supposed to by terms supposed to be this timeline where you go through this and then you get to this and you get to this and that's the direction you go. And it's the same thing in life in general, right? Like, oh, you're this age, so are you going to go to college? Oh, okay, you're this age, are you ever going to get married? Oh, you're married. Okay, are you ever going to have kids? Like there's always these timelines that we have set up instead of just allowing people to be in a space of where they at in that moment and know that like that's cool, that's their timeline and not all timelines are meant to be the same. But for some odd reason, I would love to know where this came from. We've like created this space where it's like, oh, well, if you're not here, then you're not succeeding. Well, if you're here, then you're kind of dying, right? Or if you're here, you should be ready for retirement. Like, why? Why do we have these? It's so frustrating. But I mean, I used to be a part of that as well, right? I used to hold
Don't they die?
myself.
Yes.
Yep. Those
Yep.
individual standards, oh, I'm not here. Oh, I'm a single mom with two kids. I still haven't married. What is this? I haven't figured out my career, like all of those things. And I do feel like sometimes a lot of that's out there because it's meant to keep us playing small, you know? There's easier control in that.
Yes, that's exactly right. So that, and I think you kind of touched on that, Kat. I think a lot of it is, yes, we're conditioned by society, but then the one who actually drives it is no longer society. It's us, right?
Mm,
Because it's not necessarily, I mean, yes, sometimes it's, people ask you the same questions. Are you going to get married? Are you going to have kids? La, 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 right? The same questions depending on your age bracket. And I think it's we that are like, oh, look at that. My friend just got a promotion and I haven't gotten the promotion yet. Oh, my friend just got married and I haven't gotten married yet, right? So some of it is self-imposed, but yes, the conditioning starts early on. And then we
mm.
get boxed into these things. And yes, when our individuality is suppressed, you're absolutely right. It is easier for the world around us to control us, the external environment, instead of us living from a place of alignment and presence and who we are.
Absolutely. And what's really interesting is we really do internalize so many outside pieces and components, right? We take everybody's opinion as the truth for us. We take things that we grew up with as truth when, if you really pay attention, you're like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Well, like there's certain generational sayings
Yeah.
that have become ingrained in us and we have taken it for belief because of oh well, it was my parents should know better, or oh well, this was an older adult, so they should know better. Let me just tell you guys real quick. I don't care what age you are, you probably don't have it figured out, and neither do the people above you. Okay, we just all struggling in the struggle pile together, just on different timelines. So like I just want everyone to understand that, because I mean, when I grew up, that's what it was. It was respect your elders. Your older individuals are wise. And boy, let me tell you, I have met some people that are older that I'm like, ooh, I'm pretty sure I've got things a lot more together than you do. But it's something like you said, we're conditioned for it, but then we just internalize it, and it really does become hard to break away from it, which I feel like does lead into how we are connected to the body and not. So, how do we get back to a space of neutral, right? We're being pulled in one direction from everybody in these external sources, and then people say, well, you should be connected to yourself. And we're like, I don't know where that even lands. How do we get back to that neutral space?
Yeah. Can I just touch base something super quick on something?
Obviously,
I have
yes.
like three things to touch on, but I'll touch on one. And We are so also conditioned to ask for other people's opinions, right? We have a mentor, we have an advisory board, now we have Chat GPT. I mean, we have our family and our, friends, and everybody has different opinions. So which one is the right one? And this is
Mm,
something I teach my clients. There is only one person who knows the right answer for you, and that is you. But if we've almost relinquished power to everybody else around them because we think they know better, but truly, what is the right? You and I could be in the exact same situation, but what's right for you and what's right, I put it in quotation marks, for me, might be two different choices. So there is
hmm.
not necessarily one right thing for all of us. And I think that's super important for us to claim that power back. And that goes to your next question, like, well, people, when I talk about intuition and alignment, they're like, well, what do I do? Like, what's the quick way to get to my intuition?
Ooh, yes.
Right? And it's going through the body. That's how my whole journey of the Angelova Method started coming around, because my journey started with, so I was in corporate for 20 years. And then I decided to get into entrepreneurship. I had always loved movement. I started as a classical Pilates fitness studio. And then through my own journey and through observing, I'm very curious and I'm always like, why? What I started seeing is that people's movement patterns would change based on what they had going on into their body. And I started seeing
Ooh.
how their lifestyle factors, like how did you sleep, how did you eat, how hydrated you are, your stress level, whatever was happening in your life was actually showing up into how your body shows up. And then I started seeing how their emotional and mental state was also impacting them. How I got into the world of, I don't know if you're familiar of like Louise Hay, Christine Bierland, who talk about how emotions impacts disease state. So your body is constantly giving you feedback about your state of being. But this is something else. Going back to our conversation about normalizing things, we're like, oh, well, my shoulder hurts. Yeah, I'm 45. Let me just slap some cream on top of it, maybe get an injection, maybe pop a pill, and let's keep moving forward. I don't have time to deal with that, right?
Mm,
Actually, the body saying, hey, I need your attention. Something is off. Can you please pause and like give me your attention? And we have just learned to like pass this over, right? To automatically go, well, someday, like right now I'm chasing my promotion. Right now I have my kids. I'm maybe a caregiver. Like I have a lot going on. That's not the priority until one day you're like, oh crap, I can't move my arm up. Now I have to address my body,
yep.
right? And now that journey makes you slow down because the body has been giving you like, can you please slow down? Can you please slow down? And you're like, yes, at some point. Yes, at some point. And then the body's like, all right, dude, that's it. So now you have to slow down. So learning to tune into the signs of our body is such a simple skill. It's like it's so simple and it's so complicated. And I'll tell you, Kat, like when I start working with people, I don't do the traditional 3 sets of 8 fitness. It's more, it starts with alignment. It starts with mind-body connections. It starts with you knowing where you are in space. It starts with strengthening your core, your center. And then as you move, are the right muscles properly firing up or are there compensations? And it sounds so easy. And like if you look at somebody doing the work, you'll be like, that can't be that hard. But if you start the work and if you try it, you're like, oh my gosh, like the smallest movements are so much work. The other
Hmm.
thing that's fascinating is the way a body moves tells you so much about the way the mind works. So
Ooh.
if somebody is really tense and like grabbing into their body, chances are that is how they show up in life. So your body, how much tension you carry, the stiffness, your mobility is likely how you show up in life. Your body is a mirror of what's going on in here. And when you tap into that, whoo, it's like power. And the other thing is when you create that mind body connection and you slow down, that's another thing that we have learned to override. We think we have to do more, we have to rush more, we have to perform better. It's actually the opposite. It's slowing down, tuning in, taking those breaths. That's what allows you to tune into intuition and to who you are. And in a world that tells you how you should behave and how you should think, it requires courage to stand in your truth and be like, this is the guidance I'm getting, and this is where I am.
Absolutely. Okay. So many beautiful things right there. And I'm 100% on board because I used to be one of those people as well. Like I was a high achiever, a high performer, and I was raised that like you should always be doing something. And if you are not, then you are lazy. And I actually had a coach one time that we were talking about this because she was asking me to schedule lunches on my day to day because I was like, oh yeah, I eat when I get a chance. And she's like, no, 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 I want you to schedule a lunch and I want you to sit down and I want you to enjoy the lunch. And when we got to talking about it, she was like, what is the holdup? Like I can see the tense. I love this. I can see it in your body. And I was like, I don't know, I just don't want to seem lazy. And she was like, okay, have you ever been lazy? And I was like, well, absolutely not. She was like, okay, so what makes you think that you're going to be a lazy person because you're taking a few moments? And I was like, oh. But it's so interesting how we like immediately label ourselves, especially in a society where everything has a freaking label to it. And then it's like we get stuck in that label, right? And not to anybody that, has a condition like depression or anxiety and stuff like that. But what I want you all to think about is we have gotten to a point to where every single thing that happens to us has a label to it but not a root cause attached to it. So
Yes.
we take the label, we slap it on like it's a name on our chest,
Badge of
and
honor.
then we're like, okay, and on to the next thing. Oh yeah, well, I can't do this because I've got depression, so this is what's going on. Oh, I can't do this because I have anxiety. Absolutely not. You are, again, like you were talking about earlier, you're really handing your power away because you're allowing that label to like define your entire being. Yes, you can have things like that. And yes, you're going to have down moments. You're going to have days that you need rest or you don't feel like being around people. That's normal. But when you start using it almost as an excuse, you have now let that label or that thing that was supposed to give you more of an idea of how you operate, and you've chosen to let it live your life for you. Do you agree?
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about, Kat, is you've really allowed that to become your identity. And once you start
100.
identifying with the label and that becomes your identity, now you start operating as that identity is expected to operate. And I say that with all due respect to people who are dealing with depression and anxiety. I used to deal with anxiety. But when you allow that to take over and to just be like, well, I'm anxious, and then what do? You start doing things that are reinforcing that anxiousness. So, what it requires for us to do is to break away from that identity and step into a new identity in order for us to change our behavior. That's like how our subconscious mind works. And you started talking about New Year's resolutions and motivation. And that doesn't work. We know that doesn't work. Like, New Year's
Yeah.
resolutions last for about 2 weeks and then you're back to what you know. Motivation is temporary, discipline is temporary. Because if you operate as the same person, well, I never work out. Well, if that's what you expect of yourself, guess what? After the 2 weeks are gone, you will go back to the person who never works out.
Hmm.
But if you want to step into that new identity of, you know what? I am that person who shows up for myself. I am that person who owns it and takes personal responsibility for her life. And I choose to live differently and not be a victim of my circumstances. Guess how you're going to show up? Very differently. But the underlying belief system and motivation is very different energetically. So
Hmm.
that is such a big piece. And I do think, that's my problem. Now I'll just say, it's like the elephant in the room is of our healthcare system. It does not address the root cause. Like people have
Absolutely.
arthritis in their back. Okay, well, we're gonna put you on medicine for arthritis. The best thing for arthritis is movement, and you have to get into the space that has the arthritis and safely mobilize it. And I've seen it because I work with people who have arthritis. They're like, oh my gosh, I no longer need injections in my back. But yes, they do have to move regularly, right? So unless you're addressing the root cause, whether it's in the head or in the body, you're just covering up the symptoms and you're really not helping yourself out. So that's another thing we have normalized. We're going to cover up the symptoms. We're not going to address the root cause. And it's a
Hmm.
temporary fix. And guess
Yeah.
what? You can take a medicine for so long, you can take shots for so long. Over time, that's not going to work anymore because you're not addressing the root cause.
Absolutely. And I used to see this when I was in the medical field all the time, where people would come in and they would talk about how they used to get injections and steroids and things like that. And they're like, yeah, but I keep having to up the dosage. And I'm like, well, then that to me says that there's something else going on, you know? And like you said, we are not taught in our society to understand that if something is going on, there is a very, very good probability that there's something underlying that is causing it, right? We're just like, oh, I sneezed wrong, or I'm pretty sure like I stepped on something and then it started like the next day. So it must be from that. And while don't get me wrong, like you can pick something up very heavy and tweak your back. I've done that before.
Okay.
And and there's other things that are more persistent, right? Like for me, I used to have a hip issue. And I knew that I was doing the things that I was supposed to be doing and things like that, but there was a different cause that was connected to that issue. And I think that that comes into, you know, what you were talking about a minute ago of, you know, owning that and not letting the brain define it. Because again, what we're not taught is the brain does not like to be wrong. So it is always constantly looking for things in your environment to prove that it is right. So again, like you said, it's reinforcing whatever it is that we are telling it. I'm not saying that you can be like, I'm a mountain climber and you're going to go climb a mountain and your brain's going to agree with it. Like it's the same thing as when you build habits over time that aren't really conducive to you. You can build the same habits and change the way that you want to be to get you there. But that also means that you have to start with a level of reality and clarity and truth to yourself, which I think is probably the hardest thing. And I'd love to get your take on the people that you're working with. Like, how hard do you feel like it is in being very honest with yourself? Because that is part of going through that healing process to be able to find the root cause to then move forward. So, do you find that a lot in people that you work with?
100%. And I'll tell you the one thing, even before I starting to work with a client, I am very clear. I can teach you everything that I know. If you don't show up for yourself and do the work, I can sit there and teach you all day long. Nothing is going to change, right? I can do the exercises for you. I can do the mental exercises for you. I can do the meditation or journaling or whatever it is that they're going to do to move through this journey. You have to do it. And I tell
Mm-hmm.
them, and it's going to be uncomfortable because the journey requires that you take the mirror and you face the mirror. And
Yep.
sometimes what we find, and I've been there, right? So I speak from experience. What you see in the mirror might not be what you're expecting to see. And you
Mm-hmm.
realize how our choices are producing the results that we desire or don't into our life. And really, the whole transformation and liberation doesn't start with the environment around us. It starts with us, and we have to be open to it. We have to be open to say, yep, I did that. And it's okay. We're not going to stay stuck in the past, right? We're not going to stay stuck with that old identity. Where do you want to move forward? Let's go after that identity and let's start stepping into that power from that point of view. So curiosity, open-mindedness, being willing to be
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable, these are not things that you can get away as you go through this journey. One thing I want to point out is that the journey is very individual, right? So some person, and I'll tell you, it's what I see, the journey and the speed in which you move through the journey is directly proportional to your pain point. So the bigger your pain point is, the more you're willing to step into because you're like, I mean, I have people who are like, I just need a way out. Like, tell me, teach me. I'm willing to do anything. Just like I feel trapped. Like, what's next? So those are people, who they're encouraged by their pain point. And then there's some people who are like, I'm good. Like, I want to feel better. And then even if you can speed that up, like some people pick on things very fast. Others, it takes them time to process. That's me. I'm like more the slower one because I'm very analytical.
Mm-hmm.
I have a tendency to overthink. I like to understand. And there is no right and wrong. So, like, if you and I, let's say, take the same mindset course, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Kat is picking all of this up. Why am I behind? That is not a fair comparison. We all, carry different bags behind us that we're chugging along. We all have different things that we may have to relearn, and that does not mean you are worse, you're not worth it. It's, the journey doesn't matter. No, no, no. It's just your own personal journey. And yes, being open-minded is a huge part of the journey. There is no way you can move through that journey without being open-minded and curious and ready to do the work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you're bringing up about the openness and acceptance of where you were at, because your perception is always going to be slightly different than someone else's, even if you have very similar thought patterns and beliefs and hobbies and things like that. How someone grew up, the things that they have been through, and what they're experiencing in life now is going to shift the perspective. Just like if you are, I always love using this. My husband and I do this all the time. If you're standing next to somebody and you're like, oh my gosh, check out that car. It's kind of like a bluish color. And the person's like, I think it's kind of more of like a grayish. And I'm like, yeah, but it's got a blue tint to it. And they're like, yeah, but I'm seeing more gray. And I'm like, okay, it's not that either one of us is right or wrong. It's literally the perception of how you see it, whether that is there's a variable in the eyes that somebody picks up more of one color than the other or whatever it is. And I feel like it's the same within our bodies and our minds and stuff like that. But we don't think to compare all of those pieces and components when we're talking about things versus other things that I think are a little bit more external and easy to validate. When it comes to the mind, and I'd love to get your take on this. I think that there's 100 million different ways for you to perceive and accept and handle. And you're right, like you're saying, we could take the exact same course, but we may not get the same thing out of it. 'Cause I could be in a different space in my journey than you are. You could be further along. I could be more in the beginning. Like all of those pieces and components take into account when we're going through things. And I think that that's such a huge thing to remind everyone of is your journey is your own. And we've got to get away from this right, wrong, good, bad, and just come back to a space of neutrality and start from there. We have created so many good, bad, right, wrong that's like that's all we know how to perceive. And it's like, man, let me tell you, playing in this space right here in the middle, it is so much more fun than having to worry about judging and figuring it out or things like that. Obviously, there are logical things like 1 + 1 = 2. Yeah, I get that. I'm not saying, but in other circumstances, right, there we have the ability to expand. But again, we've kind of created those labels of what's right and what's wrong and what's good and what's bad, and it gets us stuck.
100%. And you and I can look at the same, let's say, situation, and you can be like, "Oh my gosh, that's the best," and I'm like, "What's wrong with you? Like that's the worst, right?" And I would tell you, my favorite example here is, and we're not going to get into it, it's politics, right? You have
Oh
people
gosh, yes.
like, right? Like how I don't understand how that person can think that, right? And then the other
Hmm.
one is going like, well, you're an idiot. And all of that is not conductive to us growing. And I think the state of the world is showing us exactly what you're talking about. There is like
Absolutely.
right and wrong, but whose right it is and whose wrong it is, right? Your right could be
Yeah.
my wrong could be your right. Like who defines what's right and what's wrong? So what you're talking about, Kat, is assigning meaning to things. And you're 100% right that our subconscious, based on our experience, based on our conditioning, assigns meaning to things. So you can be like, this is, you picking up the cup this way is the right way. And if I pick it this way, you're like, why did you pick up the cup that way? And I'm like, I
Yep.
don't know. You're like, well, that's the wrong way. Well, says who? Right? Obviously, that's a very silly
Yep.
example. But learning that you assign meanings in a different way than I do, and understanding that doesn't make one of us bad and one of us good, just different, that has first humongous implications for us, for how we perceive the world, for how we relate to other people. And one thing I tell my clients, if you really dislike somebody and you're like, oh, I don't understand them, I think they're stupid, I think they're this, they're that. And I'm like, okay, invite them for a cup of coffee and hear their story. And I guarantee
Absolutely.
you that your perception of that person is going to shift because you know what? No matter who we are as humans, we all want the same things. We all want to be loved and accepted. That's it. And sometimes
Yep.
in the way we seek that can be dysfunctional, but we're not even aware of it, right? Because it's the only way we know.
Yep.
So then it's like, okay, so now that I have self-awareness, because that's where self-mastery starts, it's in becoming aware of how we behave, because our behavior is the ultimate result of our underlying belief system. And unless we're
Mm.
clueless of what's running the show, Like, and that's when you hear people saying, well, I don't understand why the same thing keeps happening to me. I don't understand why I attract the same type of partner, right? Well, there's a common denominator, and it's not the partners, right? So
Yep.
where is the opportunity for, and the other thing, Kat, is that's when we're like, oh, I'm so stupid. Like, no, 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 no. That's where we are. We know what we know, and when we know more, we make different choices. For us as humans, it's so easy to start beating on ourselves for our
Absolutely.
perceived insufficiencies and weaknesses, which, I mean, I would tell you, you said it, I used to be on that hamster wheel. I did too, because that's the only thing I knew. And I
Yep.
have clients who are like, I didn't know there was a way out. You look around and we have normalized it. Everybody is rushing around, feels like crap, doesn't sleep, and it's like, okay, I'm just like everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
I have to be
Yeah.
that way. And it starts with that one awareness.
Absolutely. And it's become like the common conversation, right? Like, oh, well, I didn't sleep really good last night. Oh my gosh, no, I didn't either 2 nights before. What happened to you? Like we mull over in these spaces instead of elevating the conversations that we're having so that we can go deeper and things like that. I believe that for lack of reference, we've become very shallow when it comes to a lot of things. And it's really hard to work on yourself to see things differently when you're here and you're not willing to go underneath the surface with anyone, right? Because you're like, oh, well, that made me uncomfortable, or oh, well, I don't want to ask them that because what if I don't agree with it? Like there's all these things behind it that again, it keeps us stuck. And this is why I'm super excited about your method. So the Angelova Method, said that
You
correctly.
got it? Yes.
Okay, yes. So I know it's my wording sometimes. So science backed, soul led, which I love this, but what you really focus on is rewiring from the inside out. And you talk about it being rooted in neuroplasticity and in nervous system regulation. Okay, I am all on board with this because I love this stuff. But for anyone that is listening, what the hell does that mean? What is nervous system regulation? How rooted in neuroplasticity? Give us some information on that and how that is in your method.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. So if when you move, let's say you have back pain, and let's say the cause for your back pain is in fact physical. Perhaps you sit at the desk and you slouch, right, all day long. So yes, then your posture is out of alignment. When your posture is out of alignment, over time aches and pains will come, right? So I will give you an example because visually that's an easy example for those who are listening to audio. If you have, let's say, scoliosis, which is, let's say, you're tilted sideways. So for a person with scoliosis, and I'm going to like extreme scoliosis for visual purposes, to their nervous system and to their brain, this is straight. Well, you can look at me and you will see that this is not straight, right? So
Hmm.
if I were standing and if I put somebody who is usually here, they actually become very imbalanced. They feel like they need to hold on to something because their brain is going, you will fall. Why? Because their brain knows this is straight.
Mm.
We have to repeat this pattern over and over and over and over, and we have to strengthen certain muscles which have become weak. We have to rebalance the body. We have to retrain the brain to think this is no longer straight. This is straight. When I move, I don't move like this. I move like this, which in the beginning takes a lot of work. So you have neurological pathway, and let's say the old one is you move through here, dot, 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 right? And that's how you move every single time. Now we are telling your body, no, we're going to scrap that over and we're going to start dot, 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 and we're going to change that pathway. Well, that requires repetition so that that new pathway becomes fully ingrained into the brain, which is the neuroplasticity of how you move. It's the exact same thing of how you think. If you think of how we behave, we have very automatic behaviors that we never pause and question, why am I behaving like that? Like if I keep getting the same results, why do I keep acting the same way? Well, first we have to be aware that we have an option to make a different conscious choice. And it's the same thing. If I always dot, 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 that's how I act. Now we're retraining the brain and giving it an option that it's like, wait, you have the choice to actually go dot, 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 dot. and create that new pathway. So that's the oversimplified way of describing neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity is basically your brain adapting and how it moves, how it thinks, which then affects your behavior, affects your energy, right? For example, slouchy posture is not only an appearance issue, it has physiological implications for, suppressing our breath, our digestive system, our heart, and so forth. So that's the neuroplasticity piece. Going to nervous system. So if we talk about the fight or flight, which is the sympathetic nervous system, that's the system that, like, if a lion is chasing you, your body goes, I gotta save myself from the lion, right? So you forgot about everything else that's going. Your only focus right now is escaping the lion. And our nervous system adapts so that we can survive. And having some stress into our life helps us grow. But what is not normal is when the lion is chasing us 24/7 and we're constantly into that state of survival. That's what starts causing systematic inflammation. That's what starts causing tension. That's what starts causing stiffness. That starts causing compensations. And, it just becomes a vicious cycle. Let's take movement. If I'm here because I just had a really stressful day and I tell you, lift your arm up, my arm up, that doesn't even look comfortable, right?
Hmm.
So if I take some breaths, if I regulate the nervous system, if I allow space into my body, if I allow the tension to let go of my body, now when I move, my movement looks totally different because I'm regulated. But if the lion comes, I'm going to go, ah. The same thing happens in how we show up in life. If we're constantly in a state of survival, which is the sympathetic nervous system, we become very reactive to life, right? Because it's like react, react, react. There is constantly tension of where is the danger. If we're in the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest, guess what? We start having peripheral vision. We can see the world differently than I have one focus, escaping the lion. Right here, when our sympathetic system is fired up, our only focus is survival. There is no innovation. There is no creativity. There is no enjoying life. There is no openness. There is no joy. It's survival. So when we talk about nervous system regulation, if you find yourself to be snappy, irritable, edgy, those are all signs, tense, right? Like, so I work with a lot of successful people who deal with high levels of stress, Kat. And I'll tell them, and they'll tell me, Maria, I'm okay on stress. I know how to live with stress. I'm like, you do? Okay. Take a deep breath, and you see something like, right? It's a shallow breath that creates so much tension. That's the
Yeah.
body saying, I'm under so much stress and it's not serving me. So the first thing that we have to do with these people is allow them to relax and self-regulate. And that's a big part of what I teach. I teach you to, one, be aware because your body is constantly giving you signs. And two, what are the tools that can, so to say, take you off the ledge so you shift your state from fight and flight to rest and digest. And again, we leverage the body as feedback, and then we create conscious awareness of how we can behave differently and reinforce these new habits of how we are behaving and how we show up in the world. Does that make sense?
Oh, I love this. Yes. And I love the visual of the neuroplasticity. That is probably going to be one of my favorites that I'm going to like use all the time now. So just know that, Maria, I'm like totally stealing that from you. Because so when I got out of an abusive relationship, it wasn't until a few years later that I recognized that like the same patterns and a lot of the things that I was doing in that relationship was still there, even though I'd gotten away from that. I said I would never do that, right? But it was all these underlying habits and things that I was around on a regular basis that I wasn't even aware of. And neuroplasticity was something that I think I picked up by accident. I was listening to a podcast and I was like, what the hell does this mean? And I remember looking into it. And to me, that was like the door opener of we actually have more choice and control than what we realized, right? If you're thinking about this, you can put your two fingers together and they're connected, right? And that's one habit, but you have the ability, if you stop doing that habit, to break that connection. And then that neuron can actually attach to something else. And we were like, oh my gosh, that sounds like a lot. I don't see that happen. But you do it on a regular basis, right? If you went to a new job that you had never done anything before, you had to learn new habits and you had to learn how to do certain things within that order, right? If you went back to school, you learned and trained in different things, which is something you didn't know before. So you were creating neural pathways the entire time. If you don't know how to ride a bike and you learn how to ride a bike, guess what? You created neural pathways for that. So we literally are doing this on a regular basis all the time. But when we think about these lifelong habits that we've had, like being in survival mode or being in stressful situations, we're like, no, I can't control that. It's outside of my control. It is 100% within your control. You just have to learn how to deal with that. Does that mean you need to separate yourself from individuals because every time you're around them, you get more stress? Does it mean that you need a different job because every time you're at that job, you come home stressed and snappy and you can't spend time with your kids or your family? You have to be aware of the internal, like Maria is saying, and then also be aware of the external, which might be part of the cause or is keeping you in the loop, right? I hear a lot of people talk about this with family members, which I hate because I grew up feeling or knowing my belief was that family was everything, right? Family's who you went to, family always had their best outlook for you. Like family is family is family. And I've met so many people that unfortunately do not have that. They have that broken home. They have that parent that wants more for them than they want for their child. And it was very eye-opening to me, but also it was like there is this instinct of feeling like family is supposed to be number one, yet you have individuals that are seeking the other way. So it's like we have to be able to break away from what is causing these stressors, right? And unfortunately, that could mean family and friends or a job and certain situations. And that's what breaks part of the cycle. Obviously, like you're saying, it still takes that repetition. It still means putting better habits into place and being aware of it. But sometimes we have to make hard decisions to begin to get to that space of healing. And that's a hard one for us to swallow as well.
Yeah. I mean, I would tell you, even personally, one of the hardest things is breaking apart from relationships, which, and I firmly believe some people are in our life for a reason, for a season, for a lifetime. And going
Absolutely.
back to family is, I would say, watch your triggers. What are the circumstances? What are the people that are triggering you? Because those triggers are actually about you. They're not about the other person. There is a deficiency, an emotional deficiency, a need deficiency within you that you're being asked to address. And you know what? Families know what they know, right? Like sometimes the parents know what they know. And as you're
Hmm.
growing, this happens a lot. People around the person who is growing, they're like, you're crazy. Like, what are you doing? Because they don't have exposure and openness to that new stuff that's happening. And it's not because they mean bad. Actually, when you start breaking away from your comfort zone, you're starting to shake up the comfort zone for those people who are a part of your life.
Yeah.
And dude, like I didn't sign up for that. I'm perfectly good in my box. Like, don't shake it up for me. And those people are usually not maliciously meaning. They just know what they know. And they're like, you're not safe right now. And
Yeah.
again, as humans, the thing that guides us is safety and survival. That's like basic human instincts. So it's important
Hmm.
to understand why we feel a certain way with people. And you know what? Sometimes, yeah, you will grow out of alignment with some people. Does it mean they're bad people and you're better than them? No. It just means going back to our conversations that you're at a different part of the journey than they are, and that's okay. You can
Hmm.
work with them with love and understanding. And Kat, to what you said is sometimes people grow up in a lot of dysfunction. And as hard as it is to comprehend that, is parents, even when they do really traumatic things to kids, it's because that's what they know. And they know it probably from somebody who taught them that. So
Hmm.
it's like the generational effect. that is being carried over. So I think to what you're saying, we have a way more control over ourselves and our over our state of being than we think we do.
Yeah, 100%. And that was something that for a really long time I didn't understand because I thought that everything else was kind of controlling it and I had to figure out how to go with the flow. And it doesn't mean that it's necessarily easy, right? Those choices aren't always the easiest choices, but it's choosing to put yourself first and choosing to better you. And because of that, that means that you may have to take a different path that not everybody is going to follow you on. And I love this analogy of, you only know what you know. I thought that was a really interesting phrase that I learned a couple of years ago. And I'm like, I mean, that makes so much sense. And like you said, they may not be exposed to it or they may not want to be exposed to it, right? They're perfectly comfortable and that's fine. But if you choose to do different, then you have to understand that you are now doing you and they are doing them and it just separates the journey and so you're not on that same timeline, which honestly is kind of the cool thing of everybody being different because that's how we get to learn and understand from other people, right? Is knowing that we can be learning and we can be teaching people at the same time, but you can still be the student while you're being taught. Like there's this really beautiful mix that we have that again I just don't think society talks about because it's easier to say the same thing we've been saying. So yeah, if they're the teacher then there's no way you know more than them, but if that was the case then we wouldn't have some of the discoveries that we have, we wouldn't have some of the directions and the paths that we've gone because people would have been like, oh well, there's no way that that could be right because this person's above me and so therefore I couldn't possibly be in that realm. So we do have to be able to be open and yes, it comes back to self more than anything, which again, that's a really hard thing to do because sometimes it is easier to just say, oh, well, this is going on because of X, Y, and Z. Then we don't have to tap in. We don't have to be uncomfortable. We don't have to accept. We don't have to be honest. And honesty is going to get you further than you ever going to be if you can truly be honest with yourself, because then you can start being honest on the outside. And again, that's not for everybody, and there's nothing wrong with that. But being
Whatever you
okay
are.
with that, I think, is something that you really have to be okay with stepping into, and that means being uncomfortable.
That's, you know what? That's inevitable. And again, people who step into this work, I am like, this will be uncomfortable. It will be uncomfortable physically. It will be, a lot of the people who come to me are people who are like, go, go, go. And I'm like, and now we're going to sit and breathe, right? And they're like, oh my God. And I'm like, right. That is, we have to shift the nervous system to
Hmm.
what the example you gave before, where you felt lazy just because you're enjoying lunch. Just yesterday, I told somebody, I want you to sit down and savor your lunch. And she goes, oh, wow. She's like, yeah, I don't do that. I'm like, right. So and it's, this is the other thing, yeah. It starts with the tiny little steps. This not journey from
Absolutely.
here to here. This journey is like tiny, minuscule steps, which is another part we have normalized. Like, unless it gives me overnight results, I don't want to be a part of it.
Hmm.
This is not a thing it's an overnight thing. Because again, we are changing your brain. We are changing your identity. This is like profound, deep. You said we've gotten used to the shallow. Yeah, this is profound, you guys. This is so deep. And yes, uncomfortable. Yes, requires courage. Yes, my goodness, so beautiful. And the way you see the world as you go through this process is completely different than what you used to see before. And
Yeah.
like, it's just mind blowing. And you can't even describe it if you haven't gone through this journey.
Yeah. 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 I sometimes am speechless at some of the ways that I view things and how some of the smallest things like bring so much joy into my life where before I would have never picked up on that. Maria, we could talk for hours. I do want you to tell everybody, where can they find you? How can they follow you? How can they be in your world? And then I know that you also have a freebie you'd like to share to help get people started on this journey. So share away.
So my website, rebelliousstudio.com. And then you can find me on social media. I'm the mind body expert. But if you go to my website, that's kind of like you can find everything there. and including the freebie, which is a 10-minute reset. And I'll tell you, I love the 10-minute reset because it is short and to the point, and it has a PDF that has a little evaluation point that will give you feedback on what state your nervous system is in. And they're super simple questions. And then the reset takes you to a tiny routine that you can do at any part of the day. There is a video and there is also the audio in case you want to do it while you're driving, that you can do at any point of time. I will say if that's the first time you're doing it, you might be like, are you kidding me? This is going to help me change my life. Yes, it starts that simple with you being willing to slow down for, it's 10 minutes, but probably 2 of them I talk. So it's like 8 minutes. It is profound work, and repetition and consistency is the key to starting to see change. So yes,
Absolutely.
and if you go onto the website, you can find the link to the 5-minute reset and just get it. I mean, the 10
I'm
minutes.
so excited about this. I'm going to go check it out because I love learning new things. So I'm going to check this out. I'm going to download the PDF. I think this is fantastic. Plus, I also have two, well, they're not teenagers anymore. They're going to kill me if I keep calling them that. I have two young men that, I think this would be fantastic for as well, because not everybody wants to listen to mom. But I think that yeah, so you understand. But yeah, so we'll have all the information in the show notes. We'll make it super easy for you guys to find Maria, to follow her, to get access to this 10-minute reset. And let me tell you, 10 minutes sounds like such a long time, but really it is not. And if you can make that time for yourself once a day, like that is the beginning of being able to change. You make time to go grab the coffee, you make time to scroll through your social media, you should be able to make time for 10 minutes to sit with yourself.
Hashtag choices.
Yes, I love it. So, Maria, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast today. Oh my gosh, I had so much fun. Thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge and information. To everybody else that's out there, man, okay, we're in the beginning of the year. You've made it through January. You're trying to figure out what it is you're wanting to do. Let this be your moment. Let this be the little light bulb. Let it be that little shining light. Even if you're like, oh gosh, but nothing else has worked, just test it out. Worst case, you spent 10 minutes and you go back to doing your old ways, right? No harm, no foul. I think this is phenomenal. And you all know that I am huge when it comes to the teeny tiny steps that we need to be able to take that creates that mound. So Maria, again, thank you so much for being a part of the podcast. Oh my gosh. And to everybody else out there, do one thing positive for someone each and every day and see the difference that it makes in your life. Catch you later.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Real Chat with Kat today, where real stories meet real solutions. If you love today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave us a review on Apple, and share this with someone who may also need to hear this as well. Let's also keep the conversation going. Follow me on socials at The Lotus Effect, connect with our incredible guests, and remember, you are never alone. Your story matters, and you have the ability and the power to rewrite it. You always have a choice. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and keep showing up as the incredible, unstoppable